Hi everybody, welcome back to Insight. Today I'm going to share with you how I got started with 3D printing, and I'm going to show you how I designed and 3D printed a teleprompter that mounts directly on the camera lens. So if you want to see how I did this, stay tuned and I'll be right back. So I've been 3D printing for a few months now, and I'm really enjoying it. 3D printing is one of these hobbies that open up all sorts of areas for learning. When I decided to buy a 3D printer, one of the things that I had to figure out was which brand I was going to purchase. And given the fact that I knew nothing about 3D printing, I had to do a lot of research. And what I found out was that there was a printer that was very popular and which was also very inexpensive. This was the Creality Ender 3. The Ender 3 is known for its high quality prints as well as its inexpensive price. And to make it even better, there is a huge community around this printer where one can get help if one needs it. So I went on Amazon and I bought the Ender 3. One of the things that I was really worried about was the fact that this is a do-it-yourself printer, which basically means you need to put it together on your own. It doesn't come fully assembled. Now, I did watch quite a few videos on YouTube showing how to assemble the printer, and even though it did not look terribly difficult, it didn't look that easy either. It seemed to require a fair amount of technical know-how and focus to put it together properly. And because I am not by nature mechanically inclined, the idea of putting this printer together was, let's say, a bit intimidating. Nevertheless, I decided to go with it and I ordered the printer. When it arrived, I quickly took all the parts out of the box and started assembling it, and was actually amazed to find that it was not all that difficult to put together. As long as you take it step by step, the whole thing pretty much comes together and works. So before I knew it, I was printing out all sorts of 3D prints that I found on Thingiverse. So if you're not familiar with Thingiverse, it is an online universe of 3D designs and objects that can be 3D printed. There are literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of objects on Thingiverse to choose from. And it's really easy to print these objects. So after printing quite a number of things that I found there, I eventually decided that what I really wanted to do was design something on my own. While it's fun to go out and find pre-made 3D objects, I really think that the real goal of 3D printing is to make your own designs in order to see your things printed out and become real. So I made up my mind to design something and print it out. But the question was, what was I going to design that was of any value? One thing that was absolutely important to me was that whatever design I came up with would have some kind of practical use. So after giving it some thought, I decided to design a teleprompter. Since I sometimes make videos, I do need a teleprompter, but buying one is quite expensive. Now, I did make a teleprompter a while back using stuff I bought at the dollar store, but it's not really all that good, and it's difficult to use, and it's difficult to mount in front of the camera. So my goal with this teleprompter was to make it both easy to use as well as having professional design qualities. And another thing that I wanted to do was to be able to mount the teleprompter directly on the camera. Now, I knew that this would be difficult to do given the fact that I have absolutely no experience in 3D design. In fact, this would be the first thing that I would design. I wasn't sure if I could do it, but I thought that even if I wasn't successful in making a teleprompter, at the very least, I would learn something about 3D design. So before I could get started designing anything, I needed to figure out which design program I would use. One important criteria for me was that it would be free. Now, there are a number of 3D design programs out there that are free, but because I hadn't used any of them, I really didn't know which one would be the best one for me to learn. So after doing a bit of research, I narrowed down the possibilities to two programs, FreeCAD and Fusion 360. Now, FreeCAD is an open source program, which means that it is completely free to use. The other option, as I said, is Fusion 360. Fusion 360 is a little bit different from FreeCAD in that it's not open source and it's not really free in theory. You have to pay for it. But AutoCAD, which makes the program, does have a free option. It's possible to download Fusion 360 and use it without there being really any restrictions on how it's used, as long as you are either a very small business, which means that you are making less than 100,000 US dollars a year, or you are a hobbyist. So since I fall into that category of a hobbyist, and I'm not making $100,000 US a year, I could use either Fusion or FreeCAD. So I thought about it, and after deliberating a little bit, I finally decided that I would use Fusion 360. And the main reason for that is that I know a couple of people who use this program who offered to give me help if I needed it, and since I knew that I would probably need help, I decided to go with Fusion 360. I think that FreeCAD would have been just as good, but given that I knew people who used Fusion 360, I thought that it was the better choice. Alright, so now that I had the application that I was going to use, the next thing that I had to do was learn how to use the program. So this was a big hurdle. Learning how to use a 3D modeling program is intimidating because 3D design is very much an engineering type application. So your brain has to be very precise and mathematical. And unfortunately, that is not something that my brain does naturally. By nature, I'm more intuitive, and the idea of precise measurements and doing mathematical calculations to figure out the design structure just seemed a bit overwhelming. But I knew that probably the best way to learn the program was to simply open it up, start playing around, and given my experience in the past with learning programs, I realized that the best way to do it was to just get in there and start using the program, which is exactly what I did. And surprisingly, it didn't really take me that long to get familiar with Fusion 360. Most of the functions and tools, I was able to understand them, not all of them, but enough certainly to be able to build something. So I played around with it for a few hours, 3, 4, maybe 5 hours, and I felt confident enough to start designing my teleprompter. So at this point, let me show you some of my designs and tell you why I think some of them work and some of them don't. So let's turn to the computer and I'll take you through what I made. Okay, so my first design was this, and it was really a miniature. I was just trying things out. My whole point here was just to see whether I could actually make something that would work and test it out to see how it would print. The idea is to insert the glass into this slit, which you can find on both sides. The phone would rest right here. So this was my first design. I printed it out. It printed fine, and I was really happy about it. So I went to my second design, which was this. And this is just a box basically with the hole here where the lens is going to fit through. This is a full-sized version. I tried printing it out and it printed just fine until it got to the roof here, and then the whole thing fell apart. So one thing that I was not aware of, I should have been aware of it, was that I would need supports for this overhang. In the small version, it printed just fine because it was very small. Now I'm talking very small. So the overhang here really printed without any issues. However, since this was the full-sized version of the teleprompter, the overhang here just collapsed and I had to stop the print. I guess I was completely unaware of gravity, or at least I wasn't thinking of gravity and the impact that gravity has on something that is just hanging up in the air. Gravity is going to bring it down, and that's exactly what happened. So I had to rethink this. I could either print it with supports, which I didn't want to because it would take a long time to print, and it was already really long printing this version without supports, so I didn't want to add supports to the print time. So the next version that I made was basically one without any roof at all, so nothing at the top, and I thought, well, this is definitely going to print just fine, and it did. It printed well enough. I made some modifications to the slits. Instead, I had a bit of a ramp. The idea was that the glass would just basically slide on the ramp, and I may put some Velcro here to keep it in place. I looked at this and I thought to myself, I really don't like the way this looks. I was not happy with this design. So I thought, I'm going to rethink this whole thing and come up with a new design. So my next design is the final design that I made. In this design is a little different in that basically I took all the walls out. I kept only the walls that I needed, and those would be the walls for the phone right here. It needs to go somewhere, and then of course the back wall with the hole where the lens would fit. Now this brought up another issue, which is how am I going to support the glass on which the text was going to reflect at a 45-degree angle. How was I going to do this? So this brought up another problem I had to solve. Now, one thing that I did have here, I didn't like, the walls were very thick. I printed this out, but it took a very long time, and I realized that I really didn't need to make the walls this thick. One thing that you learn very quickly with 3D printing is that less is more. If you can get something to work with as little printing as possible and still make it look good enough, then go for it. Don't waste resources. Don't waste filament unnecessarily. Don't waste your time printing something that you don't need to print. Print just what you need. So I remodeled this, the same basic shape, but I made it a lot thinner. And this is pretty much the final version of the teleprompter. I printed this out and it printed out beautifully. I was very happy with it. Now I did make another version which I actually did not print out yet, and this version is even thinner. It's 1 millimeter thick, and I'm going to try this one. I have this one. I printed this one out and it works very well. I am going to try the thinner version to see how it works, but it does seem a little bit too thin to me. And I even made another version that is a little more elegant with rounded the rounded walls here, which looks very nice. And I may print this one because I really like the way this one looks. So the next thing I had to figure out was, well, how am I going to mount the glass at a 45-degree angle? I came up with a solution. These clips basically are going to hold the glass. So these clips are going to go on either side of the teleprompter. So right here, on this side and on this side. And the glass is going to slip into this hole at a 45-degree angle. And because they're separate pieces, I'm going to have to glue them, which is what I did. I printed them out and I glued them, and it turned out very well. The other thing I came up with is the lens sleeve. This basically goes on the lens. So the idea is that it screws on the lens with these threads, and these are 58 millimeter threads with a 0.75 pitch, and they screw perfectly on a 58 millimeter lens. So the idea is that this sleeve goes on the lens and the teleprompter screws on top of the sleeve. The reason I did this is to protect the lens. I don't want to put pressure on the lens with the screws that are going to basically keep the teleprompter on the lens. And finally, the last bit of stuff that I had to design and print were the screws that go into the holes here. And these screws basically will screw onto the sleeve and hold the teleprompter in place. So it took me a while to come up with all the different parts. I printed them out and they printed out very nicely. What I'm going to do now is show you all the parts and how they come together. So let's do that, and then I'll show you how the teleprompter works. Alright, so let me walk you through all the parts of the teleprompter and how they come together. So the main part of it, of course, is the body of the teleprompter, and you can see here that it printed out very well. I'm really happy with the way the logo printed out. I think it looks great. So this is the body of the teleprompter. We've got the two brackets on the side here, and the glass will slip into these notches in the brackets. Now, the brackets need to be super glued on. You've got to be very careful when using super glue. You can't use too much. If you do use too much super glue, it will leave a residue that is hard to get off. So a good principle to live by when it comes to super glue is less is more. Don't use too much. The less you use, the better it sticks. So just use a dab. So this is the main body. The next thing, of course, is the screw. And the body here has 4 screws. These go here, and the lens will fit into this space here. Now, I've already got 3 of the screws in here. I didn't fully screw this one because I wanted the body to rest properly on the table. But you need to screw it in basically from the inside, as there is a stopper here to prevent it from being screwed out the other side. So it needs to be screwed in from the inside. So once you screw it in, you'll have 4 screws that will be a part of the body of the teleprompter, like so. This is the sleeve for the lens. This will fit over the lens, and then the lens will go into the opening of the teleprompter. The 4 screws will tighten on the sleeve. They will not touch the lens, and the teleprompter will stay put. I will show you how that works in a minute. Besides the printed parts, you will also need to get a couple of things at the dollar store. So firstly, you'll need to get a piece of felt. I bought this piece of felt here from the dollar store for $1, not even $1, 62 cents. Very inexpensive. It's 8.5 by 11, so paper sized. You can buy any piece of felt. Make sure it's black though. It's very important for it to be black. You can cut your own piece of felt. So a piece of felt, 8.5 by 11, you'll need that. You'll also need some paper clips. So you'll need 4 small ones, like so, and 2 medium ones, like so. And they will be used to put the felt on the teleprompter to keep it in place. You'll also need, this is optional, but you can get one if you can, it's helpful. You'll need this glass cleaning cloth, and basically this is going to be used to clean the glass occasionally. Doesn't hurt to have it because the glass of the teleprompter will get dirty. And lastly, and very importantly, you'll need a piece of glass to use as the reflective surface. This piece of glass I got from the dollar store. Again, it was part of a frame, a picture frame. I took the glass out of the picture frame, and in this case I got 2 picture frames for $1.25. So basically this glass cost less than $1. Now, if you want to get real teleprompter glass, you'll need to get what is known as beam splitter glass. So this is ordinary glass. Beam splitter glass is used in professional teleprompters. The difference between ordinary glass and beam splitter glass is the fact that there's a coating on the beam splitter glass which prevents ghosting. And ghosting is what happens when you reflect something on an ordinary glass. You'll see it doubled up. With beam splitter glass, it will reflect like a mirror, so it'll look much clearer. However, it still works very well. Ordinary glass still works very well, so you can definitely use that for a teleprompter, especially if you're not using the teleprompter every day. All right, so how does it all come together? Let me show you. So firstly, you need to put the glass into the body of the teleprompter. So you just slide it into the 2 notches like so. Make sure that it's fitting in properly. So it should be even at the bottom, which it is. So it's at a 45-degree angle. And now that the glass is in place, we'll need to put the felt in place. So we'll cover it like so. Make sure that it's nice and even here. We'll take the paper clip, we'll put it on like this. We'll take the second paper clip, we'll put it on like this. Now we'll fold it like so. And we'll take a small paper clip and we'll clip it here. This all clips to the glass. And we'll just continue putting the paper clips on. I'm going to do that in fast motion, and I'll see you back when I'm done. Alright, so now it's all put together and ready to go. In order to store the sleeve for the lens, you can just put it in here, like so. And then you tighten up these screws a little bit. And the sleeve will just stay in place, like so. So you've got a teleprompter that you can carry around with you, and it works and it looks pretty good. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is take the teleprompter and show you how it works. Alright, so this is how you mount the teleprompter onto the camera. It's really very simple. The first thing you need to do is to get the sleeve for the lens. So you take it out of the opening here. You unscrew the screws so the opening is completely unfettered, open. You take the sleeve out. I'm just going to put the teleprompter down for a minute. Now you need to basically put the sleeve on the lens by screwing it on. And you do this very gently. It should screw on without any issues. It needs to get into the right groove, and it will with a bit of gentle finessing of it. So it's screwing on perfectly. Don't over tighten it, just leave a bit of slack so the lens sleeve can move around a little bit back and forth. So that's all you need to do with the lens sleeve. Once that is on the camera, you take the teleprompter like this and you insert the lens into the opening, like so. You put it all the way to the back, and then you simply tighten the screws a little bit. You tighten the bottom one first, and then the top one. Don't over tighten, you don't need to. And then the side screws. And then the other side, like so. And now the teleprompter is securely on the camera. It's not going anywhere. And because you haven't over tightened the lens sleeve, you can actually move the teleprompter back and forth and essentially get it straight so that it's just right for reading. like so. There we go. Now, the next step is to get the phone and to turn on the teleprompter software and to put it on the teleprompter. So I've got my little phone here, and I've got a program on here called Printed Teleprompter. And Printed Teleprompter is a free program that you can download from the web, and it basically allows you to flip the text so that you can see it right side up. So I'm just going to open up some text here, and I will put it on the teleprompter and show you what it looks like. You basically just put it like this, and when you're ready, you start playing the text, and it will reflect on the glass of the teleprompter, and you can read the text from wherever you're standing. So that's basically the whole process of putting the teleprompter on the camera, and it works very, very well. Now, one of the issues that I haven't talked about, and I'm not going to talk about it in this video because it requires a video all on its own, is how to control the text on the teleprompter. Because sometimes you just want the text to stop. Maybe you want to discuss something without reading. You just want to discuss something off the top of your head, so you want the text to stop, and then you want to go back to reading. There is a way of doing this. I'm not going to show you how to do that today, but I may make another video to show you how you can control the speed of the text scrolling on the teleprompter. I'll do this in another video. Alright, so now I'm going to show you how it looks when you read the text from the teleprompter. So that's going to be the final part of this video. Hi everyone, welcome back to Insight. I hope that you enjoyed my video on 3D printing a teleprompter. As you can see, a teleprompter is very helpful because it helps you keep track of your ideas, especially if you're making videos where there are a lot of details that you need to keep straight. Now, when using a teleprompter, one of the most important things to keep in mind is that you need to practice sounding natural. A teleprompter is useless if you sound like you're reading from a teleprompter. It takes a bit of practice, but the goal is to sound as natural as possible. It's important to sound as though you're having a conversation with your audience. Just in case you didn't know, the first in-lens teleprompter was developed by Jess Oppenheimer, who created the I Love Lucy show. He was awarded a number of US patents for his creation. His system uses a mirror to reflect a script onto a piece of glass placed in front of the camera lens, which allows the reader to look directly into the camera. This type of teleprompter was first used by Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz in 1953 to read commercials on camera. Later on, it was used by Television News, and it's the primary system used with teleprompters today. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you have any comments, please leave them below. Until next time, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.